Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today we're back at it with another comic book based list video that I'm calling 5 more comic book hidden gems. Every so often I like to do videos like this that just showcase perhaps lesser known comic collections or runs that I honestly think are quite good or great. You can generally think of this as a just basic comic book recommendation video. I tried to pick some titles that are off the beaten path a little bit in some cases, and some properties that are a bit more well known. For this video as well, I decided to lean more toward the side of paperbacks. I do have one hardcover collection in here, but a lot of these are just kind of accessible trade paperback collections. At any rate, I can't wait to talk about all of them today. Before we do though, I would like to shout out the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link to the site in the video's description, and if you see anything there you like, you can actually use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's probably the best way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with our hidden gem list. First up today, in no particular order, we have Nocterra Volume 1 by Scott Snyder and Tony S. Daniel. Now this is an Image Comics release, and at the time of the recording we have what I believe is the complete series spread across 3 trade paperback collections. Fingers crossed for a future hardcover edition, you'll never know. But for right now, I'm going to call this a hidden gem. I think that this did have a bit of popularity right when it was coming out, but I feel like I see less and less people talking about it. Perhaps it's because we finished it out not too long ago, but at any rate, I thought it was worth recommending yet again. For those that don't know, Nocterra is a dystopian sci-fi action blockbuster series, and I personally adored this run. Now, I should say I am a huge fan of Scott Snyder, just as a general rule. Ever since I first checked him out in the Batman New 52 era, I was just hooked on this guy's writing, and this is no exception. Pairing that with the incredible art of Tony S. Daniel, we really have a treat here. As far as the basic premise for Nocterra, it takes place in a near future that has been enshrouded in a perpetual darkness for going on a number of years now. But now, in the dark, we have kind of mutation happening with people and animals and plants and all sorts of things, and the vestige or remnant of humanity survive in these kind of constantly lit little compounds or campgrounds, and the light is the only thing that staves off the mutating darkness. Now, going from encampment to encampment takes a really rare kind of individual, and that's where our primary protagonist comes in. She's known as someone who can ferry across these lands, usually in a lit semi-truck-like contraption, and that is just the basic setup. Along the way in this series, we have our main character and supporting cast fending off not only the forces of darkness, but a lot of just really intense villains. We try to get to the root of what happened to the world and if there's any hope for the world going forward. Not only is this a fun and entertaining read, but the art again from Tony S. Daniel is absolutely commendable. Every page, the imagery just jumps right off. It's so immersive and interesting. It has that kind of world-building sci-fi fantasy-like feel, and I just can't recommend it enough. There were highs and lows throughout this series for me, but across 3 paperbacks, it really wasn't that much of an investment, and it is one heck of a ride. This is also one of those comic book franchises I would love to see adapted in a kind of live-action format of some kind. I think Nocterra really lends itself to something like that. It has that kind of summer blockbuster-like feel. Characters are all really likable, dialogue's very solid, the plot is really full of direction, intrigue, and just fun. Anyway, if you haven't heard of Nocterra, if you haven't read it, I just thought it was a hidden gem worth recommending. Alright, next on my list today is Sunder, Tome 1, the Volume 1 for this incredible fantasy series, written and illustrated by Pierre-Alexandre Comtois. This is a really fascinating book from Mad Cave Studios that I believe just came out earlier this year. Now, I am saying this is a hidden gem, but it is a relatively newer release. In fact, I just finished reading it, and I do plan to do a full review on the channel coming up soon. But you might be asking yourself, what is Sunder? Why do you you consider it a hidden gem? Well, I'm really happy to set this up. So the premise of this is it's just a big open world fantasy series. It has these anthropomorphic animals, and it's just an incredible piece of world building. I'm also enjoying it because it's relatively all ages friendly. There are some darker themes or elements, I suppose, but it has a kind of all ages feel. In fact, the most analogous comic book release I have ever experienced that's close to this is something like Bone by Jeff Smith. And I mean that in the most complimentary possible sense. Now, Sunder does follow this goat boy as he finds a magic book and begins a quest to figure out where its owner is. He leaves the only home he's ever known and takes a lot of steps into a much broader world. Along the way, he does encounter a supporting cast of nice characters, some really notorious villains, and again, some really impressive world building and just set pieces. Even now, reviewing it again, I just cannot underscore enough how incredibly immersive and well done the world is. The characters are all immediately likable. I really love the dialogue. I think all the character motivations are really clear. The imagery is crisp and unique. I just really loved this book. And the fact that it comes in this paperback that is a bit oversized, it's just a really great way to showcase that lovely art. I have not read anything by this creator before, and in fact, this whole book was a bit of a surprise for me, but I am absolutely hooked, and I cannot wait to see where the story goes from here. I'm gonna call it a hidden gem, but honestly, I just really want to recommend it. I know it's a newer release, but outside of Mad Cave, I really haven't heard a lot of people discuss this book yet, and I really want to change that because I just think it's that phenomenal. I understand a high fantasy comic book series might not be for everyone, but certainly if this is a genre you gravitate towards, I can absolutely recommend this first volume of Sunder. And as I mentioned, I do plan to do a full review of this title shortly on the channel if I haven't released it already. Stay tuned. And hey, if you're enjoying this comic book list video and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I would just like to invite you to do so. I'm always doing videos like this, along with comic book reviews, unboxings, shorts, and so much more. Thank you for considering. Now let's keep this list right on going. Okay, next hidden gem comes from Titan Comics. We're looking at Blade Runner 2019 Volume 1 by Michael Green, Mike Johnson, and more. Now, perhaps this is a surprising choice, I'm not sure, but I was completely taken aback by how great this series was. I've read the entire box set of Blade Runner 2019, and I do plan to do a full review on this channel for this series as well. But rest assured, this is one of my favorite kind of neo-noir, cyberpunk, sci-fi futures I've ever had the pleasure of reading in this medium. I have watched the original Blade Runner film, but beyond that, I don't really know much about this franchise or property, and I'm always a little bit wary to explore comic books based on well-known IP outside of the medium. But that being said, this book was excellent. I firmly believe it has a really low barrier to entry. In fact, I don't think you need to know anything about the Blade Runner franchise to pick up this book and begin your reading. Certainly, if you know a little bit about that world and the replicants, it would probably help fill in the context a tad, but I do think the creators do a fantastic job of creating the world itself within the comics to enjoy it just in and of itself. Blade Runner 2019 fills up 3 paperbacks about this size, and I believe it has sequel series in Blade Runner 2029 and 2039, if I'm not mistaken. But at any rate, I've read all of the 2019 run, beginning with this paperback here, and yes, it is fantastic. It is kind of one of those neo-noir, kind of gritty crime stories that just happens to have a lot of the trappings and tropes of a just dystopian sci-fi epic. The main character is really gritty and likable. I really found myself compelled by the inherent mystery of the whole plotline throughout this. I thought it was really well paced, the action was excellent, and the art just jumped out of every panel. Again, I cannot say enough. I think one of the most impressive feats about this book is that you really don't even need to know anything about the Blade Runner franchise to enjoy it. I've heard a couple people talk about this series, but frankly, not enough. I highly recommend this, easily on my hidden gem list. It's one of the most enjoyable reads I've read in the last couple months or so, and like I said, I can't wait to do the review. And being a trade paperback, it is a little bit easier on the wallet, so if you want to just try something a little bit different, maybe you're not a fan of Blade Runner, but you like science fiction and you're ready for a new read, I definitely recommend this series. I just think it's a lot of fun. I'd also personally be curious to hear in the comments, have you read Blade Runner 2019? Have you read any of the Blade Runner comics? Do you have any recommendations? Let's get those comments going, as I'm just really curious. Titan Comics really knocked it out of the park here, and yeah, just one I really highly recommend. Next up on my list today is yet another trade paperback collection. This is Batman Joker's Asylum. And of course, this was published by DC Comics. I did do a full review of this trade paperback, I think a year or so ago on this very channel. So if you'd like to see more information about this collection, I'll definitely try to link the video. What this trade paperback includes is a pair of mini-series for Batman Joker's Asylum 1 and 2, and essentially what this is it's a collection of issues where each issue kind of just follows a Batman villain as they go about their day or get into hijinks or crime. And we have Joker serving as a kind of crypt keeper like narrator who does a kind of frame narrative with all of these stories. It's a really interesting kind of curated vignette or anthology series that for fans of the Batman universe, I just think is a really fun treat. I know recently DC Comics released the Batman One Bad Day collection of one-shots or box set. If you like that and you have not read Batman Joker's Asylum, it's definitely in a similar vein. In fact, I would say the focus is a bit more clear and kind of rigid in a good way with Joker's Asylum. They play less fast and loose with the formatting, so you get a lot of really consistent, excellent storytelling. Along the way, you have just a collection of different writers and artists as they depict these different Batman villains. I would say you don't really need to know much about the Batman universe to enjoy Joker's Asylum. I think if you just have a passing knowledge of Batman and his main villains, then that's enough to just really enjoy this collection here. I also think if you like anthology-based storytelling or like short story-like collections, this might also be up your alley. Like I said, I read this a couple years ago and it has stuck with me, and it's a collection I think about quite often. I think some of the individual stories are just really sharp and entertaining. Like I know the Scarecrow story sticks out to me. The Poison Ivy story, the Joker, Two-Face, like a lot of just these really well-known characters, Penguin, Harley Quinn, and so many more. Batman doesn't really do enough things like this. I think that he has such an impressive rogues gallery, but to have a showcasing of some of these villains' greatest hits or kind of one-off stories, I just think it's a really fascinating way to look at just this overall universe. I also thought it'd be fun to include a hidden gem with one of the best-known comic book franchises out there, being Batman, of course, and this is a collection I just think maybe more people should check out. It has a little bit of a darker edge to it, so perhaps it's not for every reader out there, but certainly if you like the darker corners of the Batman mythos, like I said, I just think it's a really fascinating collection. Other than Batman One Bad Day, I honestly haven't read too many things like this, and like I said, it's just an absolute standout. Don't miss out on Batman Joker's Asylum. And rounding out our hidden gem list video for today, we have Fantastic Four by Matt Fraction, The Omnibus from Marvel Comics. Now this is a book, admittedly, I have recommended quite a bit on my channel, but I've just been thinking about Fantastic Four a lot, especially with the upcoming Fantastic Four First Steps movie, and depending on the release of this video compared to when I'm recording it, that movie might already be out. But at any rate, the Fantastic Four is in the cultural zeitgeist again, and in a way that I'm just really happy with this franchise. Honestly, I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about some of my favorite runs, my greatest hits. And while this might not be my favorite run on Fantastic Four, I still think it's an exceptional run that often gets overlooked, and I'm really not sure why. Matt Fraction is easily on my short list for one of the most underrated writers at Marvel Comics, and this run in particular, I just think is such a standout. This omnibus is also pretty unique in that it collects two runs by Matt Fraction that are kind of companion pieces that were running concurrently. We have his run on Fantastic Four and his run on FF, which stands for the Future Foundation. Why I really love this is because you kind of feel like you get two runs for the price of one, and there is a lot of connective tissue, but we also have the feeling that these are two separate runs. You have Matt Fraction on both, of course, but for Fantastic Four, most of the art is provided by Mark Bagley, one of my favorite comic book heroes, and on FF, the art is by Mike and Laura Allred, another one of my favorite comic book artists. A lot of people might see a lack of cohesion between the art styles jumping from book to book, but I personally love juggling back and forth between these runs. We had the Bagley Fantastic Four series following our main Fantastic family throughout different spaces and dimensions in reality, and in FF with the All Reds, we have this kind of substitute JV Fantastic Four understudy team trying to keep everyone afloat at the Future Foundation and in New York in general. I just really love this book. Like I said, it was a really fun ride. I think that a lot of people overlook this because it followed in the wake of Jonathan Hickman and his unbelievable run on Fantastic Four. And while this run, again, might not be as good as the Hickman run, at least in my mind, I still think it's a really fun read. And if, like me, you're just thinking about Fantastic Four a lot these days, this run might be a fun hidden gem to seek out. Admittedly, at the time of this recording, I do believe this omnibus is out of print, so you're really only going to find it in secondary markets or perhaps in local comic shops, and perhaps the price point might not be agreeable to everyone. I completely understand that, but hopefully you can still track it down, or paperback collections of it, digital, things like that. Again, I just think it's a really fun run, and I'm going to call it a hidden gem because I think it's one of the most underrated runs on Fantastic Four in modern history. Don't miss out on Fantastic Four by Matt Fraction. Okay, and with that, we have come to a close for this 5 more comic book hidden gems video. Like I said, this was a quicker list video today, but I was ready to just do a general recommendation video. I've been really enjoying a lot of these collections, some more recently, some I've read back in the day, but at any rate, I wanted to present them to you because I think that there's a lot of collections here that just maybe deserve a little bit more readership and more love. I am curious, in the comments section, let me know, have you read any of the books I've showcased on this video today? What did you think about these books? Let me know all of that, and also let me know what have been some of your favorite recent reads, or what are some of your comic book hidden gem recommendations that you would like to share in the comments section for all of us to enjoy and to maybe pick up for ourselves. Let me know all of that below, and thank you so much for taking this journey with me. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave a like, those comments we talked about, and maybe check out another video on your way out. Thanks, and have a good one.